I never thought today would feel this quiet, Helen whispered to herself as she entered the sunlit room filled with framed photographs of her late husband. The soft morning light fell on the polished wooden floors and the carefully arranged floral tributes that adorned the mantel. Every picture seemed to tell a story of laughter, shared glances, and memories that had shaped a lifetime of love, and Helen felt a wave of nostalgia that mingled with a gentle sadness. She moved slowly from one photograph to another, pausing to trace the contours of familiar faces, her fingers lingering over the faded edges as if hoping to draw warmth from the memories they held. The air carried the faint scent of lilies and fresh baked bread from the kitchen, reminders of ordinary days turned extraordinary simply by the presence of family and love. Helen's heart swelled with a mixture of pride and melancholy as she prepared the small details for the Memorial Day commemoration, carefully arranging candles and tiny tokens that represented the life her husband had shared with her. She spoke softly, recounting stories aloud to the empty room, her voice steady yet tender, filling the space with the echoes of laughter and gentle teasing that had once resonated within these walls. In the midst of this quiet ritual, a soft knock at the door made her turn with a start, and there stood Emily, her daughter-in-law, smiling warmly yet with an air of anticipation that piqued Helen's curiosity. Emily held a small box wrapped in delicate paper, the edges tied with a silver ribbon, and her eyes sparkled with a secret that seemed almost tangible. "Helen," Emily said gently, "I have something important to share with you today." Helen's curiosity and heart rate quickened as she invited her in, noticing the careful way Emily adjusted the shawl around her shoulders and the soft, thoughtful glance she cast at each photograph along the wall. They settled together in the sunlit sitting room, the atmosphere charged with quiet expectation, every small gesture loaded with unspoken meaning. Helen watched Emily with a mix of admiration and suspense, sensing that whatever revelation was coming would touch their family in ways she had not anticipated, perhaps even reshaping the ordinary rhythm of their lives. The sunlight shifted, highlighting the subtle expressions that flitted across Emily's face, a delicate balance of excitement and gentle nervousness that mirrored Helen's own blend of hope and cautious anticipation. As Emily began to speak, Helen felt the familiar warmth of family ties strengthen around her, a bond that had persisted through years of joy, sorrow, and shared history. The words Emily chose were measured, thoughtful, and filled with affection, every sentence carefully crafted to honor the memory of the past while opening a window to a future Helen had not yet imagined. Helen's hands rested lightly on the arm of the chair, fingers tightening and loosening in rhythm with the ebb and flow of her emotions, while her eyes stayed locked on Emily's, absorbing every nuance of tone and expression. Time seemed to stretch in the golden light of the room, the quiet punctuated only by the gentle hum of distant birds outside and the occasional creak of the wooden floor beneath their feet. The moment was intimate, delicate, and profoundly moving, a shared space where memory and anticipation converged, and Helen could feel the steady pulse of life, love, and family continuity weaving through the ordinary yet sacred day. As Emily's story unfolded, Helen's mind revisited decades of shared laughter, small domestic triumphs, and quiet evenings by the fire, each memory a thread in the intricate tapestry of their lives, and every emotion was amplified by the sense that something remarkable, unexpected, and entirely positive was being revealed to her on this Memorial Day, a day traditionally reserved for remembrance but now brimming with a promise of renewed connection and heartfelt revelation that would linger in their hearts long after the sun had set. Helen took a deep breath as she settled into the familiar rhythm of her morning routine, the sunlight streaming through the lace curtains painting patterns across the floorboards. She moved deliberately, each motion a comforting reminder of days shaped by care, attention, and gentle habits cultivated over years. In the kitchen, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the faint scent of vanilla from a cake cooling on the counter, and Helen's thoughts wandered to the small domestic joys that had always punctuated her life with quiet satisfaction. She reached for a worn recipe book, its pages softened by decades of use, and ran her fingers over the notes and smudges left by her husband, each mark a silent testament to shared meals, conversations, and the subtle rituals of a family built on love and respect. Helen hummed softly as she prepared a simple breakfast, the clink of cutlery and the soft sizzle from the pan providing a gentle soundtrack to the morning. The house was alive with memories yet calm in its present stillness, a place where past and present coexisted seamlessly. Helen's gaze wandered to the mantel adorned with photographs, her fingers pausing on a picture of her husband smiling warmly, a reminder of laughter-filled mornings and evenings spent in quiet companionship. As she arranged the breakfast on the table, she thought of her son Michael and daughter-in-law Emily, imagining them joining her later with cheerful greetings and shared stories from their own lives. Each detail mattered: the placement of napkins, the warmth of the coffee mugs, the freshness of the flowers picked from the small garden outside, as though these small acts of care could embody the ongoing connection of family, the invisible threads that tied past generations to the present. Helen moved to the living room, adjusting cushions and straightening the edges of the rug, ensuring that the space reflected the care she felt inside. She paused to open the window, letting in the cool morning air that carried the distant sound of children playing and birds singing, a reminder that life continued outside even as memories filled the rooms within. With every task, Helen reflected on the patterns of love, respect, and attention that defined her family's way of living, the ordinary moments elevated into acts of devotion that had long sustained their bonds. She thought of the conversations she would soon have with Emily, anticipating the mix of curiosity and affection that would mark their interaction, the kind of dialogue that deepened understanding and strengthened connection. Helen's heart swelled with a quiet joy as she considered the ways in which life's routines, the simple acts of kindness and care, and the attention to shared history all worked together to create a sense of belonging and continuity. Even in the absence of her husband, Helen felt the enduring presence of his influence in every corner of the home, in every gesture, every smile shared across the table, and every moment of attentive preparation for those she loved. The morning unfolded with a gentle predictability, each action deliberate and meaningful, embodying the essence of family life, the nurturing of relationships, and the ongoing celebration of shared history. Helen knew that today would bring conversations, revelations, and moments of connection that would further strengthen the bonds she cherished so deeply, a day that would honor the past while embracing the present with warmth, care, and quiet anticipation for the love and stories yet to be shared. Emily moved through the bright kitchen with a quiet confidence, the sunlight catching the soft waves of her hair as she arranged fresh fruit and flowers on the table. Her mind was filled with thoughts of the day ahead, the conversations she would have, and the delicate balance of honoring tradition while embracing new beginnings. She hummed a gentle tune, a habit that always seemed to ground her, as she carefully placed each item in its proper place, ensuring that the atmosphere was welcoming and warm. The scent of freshly baked bread mingled with the crisp aroma of morning coffee, creating an inviting environment that reflected Emily's attention to detail and her desire to nurture the family around her. As she adjusted the position of a vase and smoothed the edges of a tablecloth, Emily reflected on the memories she had shared with Helen over the past months, moments filled with laughter, understanding, and the slow building of trust and affection. Every gesture, every thoughtful preparation, was a silent message of care and respect, an acknowledgement of the intricate web of relationships that connected her to Helen and to the memory of her late husband. Emily's eyes wandered to a framed photograph of the family on the mantel, her fingers brushing lightly over the edge as she recalled the warmth of past gatherings and the quiet joy that had always accompanied family celebrations. She considered the delicate conversations she would soon initiate with Helen, knowing that each word, each tone, carried the potential to deepen understanding and strengthen bonds. The morning passed in a series of deliberate, mindful actions, washing dishes with care, arranging chairs just so, checking that the windows allowed the perfect amount of sunlight to fill the room. Emily paused to gaze out at the garden, noticing the small details, the dew on the grass, the way the petals of the flowers seemed to reach toward the sun, the subtle play of light and shadow across the paths, and felt a sense of calm and connection to the continuity of life, even amidst change. She reflected on the lessons she had learned from Helen about patience, attentiveness, and the quiet power of small acts of kindness, recognizing that these lessons were as much about building a sense of home as they were about nurturing relationships. Emily's thoughts turned to her husband Michael, imagining his presence and the way his smile would brighten the room, the way he always seemed to anchor their family with reassurance and warmth. She envisioned the conversations that would unfold today, the shared laughter and the gentle expressions of care that would mark their interactions, the subtle ways in which bonds were reinforced through attentiveness, thoughtfulness, and the celebration of everyday life. Each moment Emily orchestrated was infused with intention, designed to honor the family's history while welcoming new memories and connections into their shared narrative. As she moved through the kitchen, placing finishing touches on breakfast and ensuring that everything was perfect, Emily felt the steady pulse of life within the home, the sense of purpose and belonging that came from creating a space where love, respect, and attention to detail converged to nurture both memory and presence. She understood that today would be filled with conversation, reflection, and moments of connection that, while quiet and unassuming, held the power to sustain the family's bonds and enrich the ongoing story of their lives together. Helen stepped into the softly lit living room, her eyes scanning the familiar surroundings that carried both comfort and the weight of memory. The anniversary of Michael's passing had always been a quiet, reflective day, yet today it felt different, tinged with a subtle tension that Helen could not ignore. She placed her coat carefully on the rack and took a deep breath, feeling the familiar ache of absence and the warmth of past laughter that seemed to echo faintly against the walls. Her gaze fell upon Emily, who was arranging a small display of photographs and keepsakes, her movements deliberate and gentle, a silent tribute to the life they had shared with Michael. Helen approached cautiously, her own emotions swirling with anticipation and curiosity, unsure of what new dynamics today might bring to their carefully maintained equilibrium. As she drew nearer, she noticed the softness in Emily's expression, a mixture of reverence, kindness, and subtle expectancy that hinted at intentions yet unspoken. The two women exchanged a quiet nod, a recognition of shared history and mutual respect, each aware of the fragile balance between memory and forward motion. Helen took a seat by the window, her hands clasped in her lap, observing the garden outside where the early morning sun painted long, warm streaks across the dewy grass. She thought about the conversations they had shared over the years, the moments of guidance and gentle challenge Emily had offered, and the ways in which their relationship had evolved through both grief and connection. Emily joined her shortly, carrying a tray with tea and pastries, the aroma blending seamlessly with the faint scent of flowers from the garden. As she placed the tray on the table, their eyes met, and a quiet understanding passed between them, unspoken yet profound. Helen lifted a cup and took a sip, feeling the warmth spread through her, grounding her in the present and offering a small comfort amidst the complex emotions of the day. Emily sat across from her, her posture relaxed yet attentive, as if prepared to navigate the delicate terrain of conversation that lay ahead. They began to speak softly, words measured and deliberate, discussing memories of Michael, sharing thoughts on family gatherings, and reflecting on the subtle shifts that had occurred since his absence. Helen found herself opening up in ways that surprised her, revealing hopes and uncertainties that she had long kept private, while Emily listened with patience and empathy, offering guidance without judgment, and allowing Helen's words to unfold naturally. Outside, the sunlight shifted, casting dynamic patterns of light and shadow across the room, mirroring the ebb and flow of their dialogue. Time seemed to move both swiftly and languidly, each moment charged with emotional resonance, yet punctuated with small gestures of comfort, a gentle touch on the arm, a shared smile, the simple act of pouring tea. Helen noticed the meticulous details Emily had incorporated into the space, the careful placement of photos, the fresh flowers, the thoughtful arrangement of personal mementos, and felt a quiet appreciation for the intentionality that accompanied each gesture. These small acts, combined with the depth of conversation and the mutual recognition of shared history, created a sense of continuity and belonging, bridging the past with the present in a delicate dance of remembrance and anticipation. As they continued their discussion, the room seemed to hum with the unspoken acknowledgement that today would mark not only a commemoration of loss but also a subtle opening toward new understandings, deeper trust, and the potential for shared growth, guiding both Helen and Emily gently forward into a day that promised reflection, connection, and meaningful discovery. Helen felt a sudden flutter of anticipation as Emily reached for a small envelope resting on the table, her fingers brushing lightly against the surface with a mixture of care and subtle hesitation. The morning sunlight streamed through the window, casting elongated shadows that danced across the polished wooden floor, highlighting the delicate tension that filled the room. Helen's heart quickened, a blend of curiosity and cautious excitement coursing through her as she tried to anticipate the contents of the envelope without revealing her own nervous energy. Emily looked up, meeting Helen's gaze with a soft yet unwavering expression, her eyes conveying both seriousness and a quiet invitation to trust. Helen inhaled deeply, steadying herself as she prepared to engage with whatever revelation was about to unfold. Emily slid the envelope across the table, and Helen picked it up, feeling the weight of the paper in her hands, both physically and emotionally. She hesitated for a moment, the corners of the envelope catching in her fingers, then carefully opened it, revealing a neatly folded letter inside. As she began to read, the words struck a chord that resonated deeply within her, each sentence unfolding layers of meaning that touched upon past memories, shared experiences, and future possibilities. Helen's eyes softened, tracing the careful penmanship as Emily watched silently, offering a gentle presence that allowed Helen to fully process the message at her own pace. The letter spoke of intentions, hopes, and subtle gestures of reconciliation that bridged generational perspectives and personal histories, creating a quiet sense of understanding that neither time nor distance could diminish. Helen paused intermittently, taking in the phrasing and sentiment, feeling a mix of nostalgia and relief as the depth of Emily's thoughtfulness became clear. She looked up, her eyes meeting Emily's once again, and for the first time that day, a small, genuine smile emerged, reflecting both recognition and appreciation. The atmosphere shifted subtly, the room feeling lighter yet filled with an unspoken reverence for the delicate emotional landscape they were navigating together. Outside, the garden seemed to mirror this transformation, the gentle sway of leaves in the morning breeze and the soft chirping of birds providing a natural soundtrack to the evolving dialogue. Helen folded the letter carefully, placing it back in the envelope, and then set it beside her cup of tea, the warmth radiating through her hands grounding her in the present moment. Emily leaned back slightly, her posture relaxed but attentive, ready to respond or offer guidance as needed, allowing the conversation to flow naturally. Helen began to speak, articulating thoughts and feelings she had long kept private, expressing both gratitude and lingering uncertainties, while Emily listened with patience, her responses measured, empathetic, and supportive, reinforcing the trust and openness that had been carefully nurtured over time. Their exchange continued, weaving between reflection on the past and contemplation of the future, each moment deepening the connection and mutual understanding between them. As the conversation unfolded, Helen felt a renewed sense of clarity and purpose, recognizing that this day, marked by remembrance and heartfelt communication, offered an opportunity for healing, growth, and the reaffirmation of family bonds that transcended simple gestures, creating a foundation for continued trust and emotional intimacy in the shared journey ahead. Helen felt the subtle shift in the room as the conversation with Emily continued, a gentle weight of understanding settling between them. The morning sunlight had grown warmer, illuminating the room in a soft golden hue that seemed to embrace both of them in quiet reassurance. Helen's fingers traced the rim of her teacup as she reflected on the words Emily had shared, each phrase lingering with significance and prompting memories she had not fully confronted until now. Emily observed with careful attentiveness, her posture relaxed yet composed, signaling that she was fully present and ready to respond when needed. Helen's voice wavered slightly as she began to articulate emotions that had long remained unspoken, discussing her fears, her hopes, and the subtle tensions that had quietly built over time in their family dynamic. Emily nodded in understanding, her expressions measured, gentle, and empathetic, offering silent support that allowed Helen to continue without interruption or judgment. The conversation meandered naturally, touching upon shared history, the impact of past decisions, and the delicate intricacies of familial bonds that had grown more complex over the years. Helen described moments of doubt, instances where she had questioned her own choices, and the vulnerability that came with facing uncomfortable truths. Emily's responses were patient and considerate, reflecting insight and compassion, encouraging Helen to explore her feelings fully while maintaining an environment of safety and trust. Outside, the garden seemed to mirror their internal dialogue, the sway of tree branches in the breeze and the gentle rustle of leaves providing a quiet, continuous rhythm that underscored the intimacy of their exchange. Helen felt a renewed sense of clarity as she spoke, recognizing the importance of honesty and openness in nurturing meaningful connections, especially during times of remembrance and reflection. Emily shared perspectives that challenged Helen to consider alternative viewpoints without imposing judgment, fostering a collaborative space for emotional exploration. As the conversation unfolded, Helen's initial apprehension gradually transformed into a feeling of relief and deeper understanding, the tension in her shoulders easing as she embraced the shared vulnerability. The two women discussed plans for the immediate future, considering ways to honor family traditions while incorporating the insights they had uncovered together, blending respect for the past with thoughtful anticipation of what lay ahead. Helen felt gratitude swell within her, appreciating Emily's calm, supportive presence and the sincerity that framed every response. Each sentence they exchanged contributed to a growing sense of alignment, their dialogue weaving a narrative of reconciliation, mutual respect, and emotional resilience. The room, once filled with quiet tension, now seemed to pulse with a steady, gentle energy, a testament to the power of deliberate, compassionate communication. Helen glanced at the letter once more, reflecting on the depth of sentiment it carried, and set it aside with a newfound sense of peace and determination. Emily offered a quiet smile, acknowledging the unspoken understanding that had developed between them, and Helen returned the gesture, a subtle confirmation that they had both gained insight, comfort, and renewed connection from this shared experience. The morning continued, carrying with it a sense of calm purpose and a recognition that through patience, empathy, and open-hearted discussion, the bonds within their family could be strengthened and made more resilient than ever before. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting a warm glow over the living room where Helen and Emily continued their conversation. Helen had moved to a comfortable armchair, her hands folded loosely in her lap as she recounted memories that had remained tucked away in the quiet corners of her mind. Emily sat nearby on a cushioned sofa, leaning slightly forward, her expression attentive, calm, and encouraging, signaling that she was fully engaged and ready to listen without interruption. Helen's voice carried a mixture of nostalgia and introspection as she described shared family moments, small joys, and subtle misunderstandings that had accumulated over the years. She paused occasionally, collecting her thoughts, and Emily gently prompted her with questions that were precise yet non-intrusive, allowing Helen to explore her emotions more deeply. The air between them was filled with a delicate tension, a mix of unspoken history and a desire for clarity, as Helen navigated through complex feelings of loss, expectation, and connection. Emily's responses were measured, empathetic, and thoughtfully articulated, reflecting a balance of understanding and perspective that encouraged Helen to continue her narrative. Outside, the garden was alive with the soft sounds of nature, the rustling of leaves and distant bird calls adding a serene backdrop to their discussion. Helen shared anecdotes that highlighted moments of unexpected kindness and resilience within her family, emphasizing how these experiences shaped her views and emotional responses over time. Emily acknowledged these stories with subtle nods and verbal affirmations, fostering an environment of trust and mutual respect. They examined challenging episodes, reflecting on decisions that had seemed necessary at the time but carried lingering consequences, discussing them with honesty and a shared commitment to understanding rather than blame. Helen began to notice a shift within herself, a quiet relief that accompanied the act of voicing long-held thoughts and feelings, and Emily observed this change with a sense of satisfaction and quiet encouragement. The conversation moved seamlessly from past to present, with Helen articulating aspirations for family harmony and future gatherings, and Emily offering insights into how small gestures, patience, and open dialogue could strengthen those intentions. Helen felt gratitude for Emily's presence, recognizing the combination of patience, attentiveness, and genuine concern that made their dialogue effective and comforting. Emily's presence was a steadying force, her thoughtful engagement allowing Helen to explore vulnerability without fear of judgment. Together, they mapped out practical steps for communication and reconciliation, considering ways to foster understanding and connection among family members. The discussion, though deeply reflective, carried a sense of forward momentum, as if each shared thought contributed to a blueprint for emotional resilience and harmony. Helen experienced a growing sense of clarity and purpose, recognizing that openness and empathy were essential in navigating the complexities of family life. Emily's guidance remained subtle, never directive, always supportive, reinforcing the importance of choice, perspective, and compassion in these exchanges. As the afternoon waned, the room seemed to settle into a harmonious rhythm, mirroring the alignment developing between Helen and Emily, a testament to the profound impact of honest, patient, and heartfelt conversation. Helen looked at Emily with a quiet smile, understanding that this dialogue had not only clarified past misunderstandings but had also laid the foundation for a stronger, more connected future within their family. The morning light filtered softly through the kitchen window, illuminating the space where Helen and Emily sat across from each other, cups of steaming tea in hand. Helen's hands trembled slightly as she unfolded a letter that had arrived unexpectedly, its envelope worn at the edges, suggesting it had traveled a long way. Emily watched carefully, her expression composed and attentive, ready to provide support without intruding, her posture relaxed yet alert, signaling that she was fully present and engaged. Helen's voice wavered at first as she began to read, the words invoking memories that were bittersweet, filled with both fondness and lingering regret. Emily responded with gentle nods and soft interjections, asking clarifying questions that encouraged Helen to articulate her emotions clearly, allowing the depth of her feelings to surface naturally. The letter recounted family events and sentiments that Helen had longed to hear, yet the act of reading them aloud made the emotions more immediate and tangible. The conversation flowed seamlessly, with Helen sharing reflections on past decisions, the ways in which her relationships had evolved, and the subtle lessons she had learned about empathy, understanding, and patience. Emily listened intently, offering thoughtful comments that balanced empathy with insight, reinforcing Helen's sense of clarity and encouraging self-reflection. Outside, the garden was alive with the gentle hum of morning activity, birds chirping and leaves rustling, adding a serene auditory backdrop that complemented the intimacy of their discussion. Helen described her hopes for reconciling past misunderstandings and fostering stronger bonds within her family, detailing practical steps she envisioned, such as regular check-ins, shared activities, and honest communication. Emily responded with observations that highlighted potential challenges and offered strategies for addressing them with grace and patience, her tone calm, measured, and reassuring. The dialogue moved between moments of introspection and practical planning, each point carefully explored and analyzed, ensuring that Helen felt heard and understood while also considering actionable approaches for moving forward. Helen felt a subtle weight lift from her shoulders, a combination of relief and determination, recognizing that articulating her thoughts aloud with Emily's supportive presence allowed her to process emotions that had been dormant for years. Emily's presence acted as both anchor and mirror, reflecting understanding and offering a steadying perspective that encouraged Helen to confront uncomfortable truths and celebrate positive developments alike. As they continued, the conversation expanded to include Emily's reflections on shared family experiences, drawing connections between past incidents and the present, illuminating patterns and highlighting opportunities for growth and connection. Helen's confidence grew with each exchange, reinforced by Emily's patient, non-judgmental approach, creating an environment in which vulnerability was met with respect and consideration. The session, though deeply introspective, was imbued with a sense of forward momentum, a belief that past challenges could inform wiser choices and more compassionate interactions in the future. By the end of the morning, Helen and Emily shared a quiet, mutual understanding, a bond strengthened by dialogue, reflection, and a commitment to fostering empathy and unity within their family. The room seemed to radiate a calm sense of purpose, mirroring the alignment developing between them, a testament to the transformative power of attentive, heartfelt conversation and the steady presence of a trusted confidant. The sun was beginning its descent, casting a warm amber glow through the windows as Helen and Emily moved to the living room, carrying with them a sense of resolution and quiet anticipation. The room was softly illuminated by the fading daylight, enhancing the serene atmosphere that contrasted with the emotional intensity of the day. Helen took a deep breath, feeling the culmination of weeks of reflection, conversation, and gradual understanding settling into a calm determination. Emily positioned herself nearby, her posture relaxed but attentive, signaling unwavering support as Helen prepared to share her thoughts with the broader family. The gentle ticking of a wall clock marked the passage of moments that felt simultaneously slow and significant, each second carrying weight as Helen considered how best to express her gratitude, concerns, and hopes for the future. She began by addressing the family with a voice steady but warm, recounting the meaningful exchanges she had shared with Emily, highlighting lessons learned, and emphasizing the importance of empathy and open communication in fostering stronger bonds. Emily occasionally nodded in silent encouragement, her expressions conveying reassurance, understanding, and solidarity. The family listened intently, their reactions ranging from subtle smiles to quiet nods, absorbing the sincerity and depth of Helen's reflections. As Helen continued, she articulated specific intentions, such as maintaining regular family gatherings, sharing responsibilities more equitably, and fostering a culture of listening and mutual support that could sustain connections over time. Emily offered gentle clarifications when necessary, ensuring that Helen's points were conveyed with clarity and emotional resonance, helping to prevent misunderstandings and reinforcing the authenticity of the dialogue. The conversation evolved organically, shifting from past experiences to envisioned futures, with Helen demonstrating newfound confidence in her ability to navigate relationships with honesty and compassion. Moments of laughter occasionally punctuated the discussion, easing tension and highlighting the human capacity for joy even amid introspection. Helen's narrative included acknowledgments of past mistakes, apologies expressed with humility, and appreciation for the patience and understanding exhibited by her family members, each sentiment delivered with deliberate care and thoughtful pacing. Emily's supportive presence served as an anchor, providing stability and encouragement, enabling Helen to maintain composure while engaging in meaningful, sometimes challenging dialogue. The room felt imbued with a sense of collective participation, as family members reflected on their own experiences and considered ways to contribute positively to the evolving dynamic. By the end of the session, an air of closure and shared understanding settled over the group, a quiet but profound acknowledgement that dialogue, empathy, and intentional action could strengthen connections and promote harmony. Helen and Emily exchanged a glance of mutual respect and satisfaction, recognizing the progress made and the foundation laid for continued growth and cooperation. As the final rays of sunlight faded, the family lingered in the moment, sharing subtle smiles and gentle gestures, a testament to the transformative power of thoughtful reflection, supportive companionship, and sincere communication that had guided them through a day filled with emotion, insight, and hope for the future.